The breath that refused to fade. The storm did not arrive. It descended. It came not as weather, but as something ancient and angry, a force that clawed at the sky and tore it open with relentless fury. The clouds churned like a boiling sea, black upon black, swallowing what little light remained of the day. Thunder did not rumble, it cracked, sharp and violent, like the bones of the world splitting apart. Rain followed. Not gentle drops, not life-giving water. Blades. Cold, merciless, relentless. It lashed across the valley, turning soil to sludge and paths to rivers, drowning sound beneath its roar. Trees bent and groaned under its weight, branches snapping like brittle bones. And through it, someone walked, or rather stumbled. Kale no longer remembered when he had started moving. Time had blurred into a haze of pain and cold, each step less certain than the last. His cloak hung heavy from his shoulders, soaked through, clinging to his body like a second skin of ice. His boots dragged through the mud, each movement costing more than the last. His breath came uneven. Too fast, too shallow. Each inhale burned. Each exhale trembled. Blood soaked his side, dark and spreading beneath his torn tunic. The wound had long since stopped feeling sharp. Now it was dull, numb. And that was worse. Because numb meant fatting. And fatting meant... No, Kale whispered, though the storm swallowed the sound before it could exist. Not yet. His voice was barely there, a ghost of sound torn apart by the wind. He staggered, nearly falling as his foot slipped in the mud. His knee hit the ground hard, sending a jolt of pain through his body. For a moment he stayed there, head bowed, hands trembling against the earth. It would have been easy. So easy. Just to stay down. To close his eyes. To let the storm take the rest. It would be quiet then. No more pains. No more struggle. Just nothing. His body wanted it. Craved it. His mind whispered that it was enough. That he had done enough. But then, it came again. A sound. Thin. Broken. Barely there. Kale's head lifted slowly. For a moment he thought he had imagined it. Just the storm. Just the wind twisting itself into shapes that weren't real. But then, again, a cry, faint, fragile, alive. Something inside him tightened. No, he breathed, forcing himself upright. That's not. Not the storm. Not the wind. Something else. Someone else. Alive. The thought struck through the fog in his mind like lightning. Alive. In this storm. Out here, alone. Kale's vision swam, darkness creeping at the edges, but he forced himself forward. One step, then another, each one heavier than the last. The cry came again. Closer now. Weaker. Fatting. No, 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 he muttered, teeth clenching. Hold on, just hold on. He didn't know why it mattered. He didn't know who or what he was chasing. But he knew that sound. He knew what it meant. Pain, fear, the slow, quiet slipping toward death. He knew it, because he was feeling it too. And he refused. Refused to let something else fade the same way. Not alone. Not unheard. The ground sloped upward, jagged rocks cutting through the mud as the valley rose toward the cliffs. Lightning flashed, illuminating the world in brief, violent glimpses. And in one of those flashes, he saw it, a shape, broken, collapsed against the base of the cliff. Kale's breath caught. There. He stumbled forward, ignoring the way his body screamed in protest. The cry came again, barely more than a whisper now. So close. Too close. Stay with me, he whispered hoarsely. Don't you stop now. He reached the base of the cliff and froze. The nest had been destroyed. There was no other word for it. Massive branches, once woven together with care, lay shattered across the ground. Stones were scattered, some blackened as if struck by lightning. The structure that had once held life was now nothing more than ruin. And in the center of it, something moved. Small, fragile, alone. Kale's breath hitched. Nose. He stepped closer, slower now, as if afraid the scene would vanish if he moved too quickly. Lightning flashed again. And for a moment, the world stood still. The creature lay curled in on itself, its body trembling weakly against the cold mud. Its scales were dull, barely formed, a muted sheen beneath the rain. One wing bent awkwardly, twisted at an angle no living thing should have endured. Blood stained its side. Dark, too dark. Its chest rose, then fell. Too slow, too shallow. Kale stared. His mind struggled to catch up, to understand what his eyes were seeing. Dragons. The word felt unreal on his tongue. Impossible. Dragons did not lie broken in the mud. They did not cry out in weakness. They did not look like this. This wasn't the creature of stories. This wasn't fire and fury and death. This was a child. Small, injured, dying. The hatchling made a faint sound, barely audible now, its head shifting slightly as if trying to move. Trying to live. Kale's chest tightened painfully. Hey, he whispered. The word came without thought. Soft, careful. The hatchling's head twitched. Its eyes, dim, unfocused, shifted toward him. And in them, there was no fire, no hatred, no rage, only fear and pain. So much pain. Something inside Kale cracked. Not suddenly, not violently, but quietly, deep, because he knew that look. He had seen it before. In mirrors, in others, in those who had been left behind. Yes, he murmured, voice rough, I know. The storm raged around them, uncaring, relentless. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Only this. Only the fragile life lying in the mud, clinging to its last breaths. Kale took a step closer. Slow, deliberate. The hatchling flinched weakly, its body tensing as much as it could. Instinct. Even now. Even dying's. It feared him. Of course it did. Humans were not kind to dragons. And dragons were not kind to humans. That was the way of the world. The unspoken truth written in blood and fire. But this was not that. This was something else. I'm not going to hurt you, Kale said quietly. The words felt strange. Fragile, as if they might break under the weight of reality. The hatchling didn't respond. It didn't have the strength. Its body trembled again, a weak, shuddering motion. Its breathing hitched. Faltered. Kale's heart stuttered. No, he whispered, dropping to his knees beside it. No, don't. His hands hovered over the small body, trembling. He hesitated. Just for a moment. Because this was a dragon. Because this was dangerous. Because this was alive. And then the hesitation broke. He reached down, sliding his hands carefully beneath the hatchling's body. It was lighter than he expected. Too light. Fragile. Warm. The heat surprised him. Even now. Even like this. It still held warmth. Still held life. Easy, he murmured, lifting it gently against his chest. I've got you. The hatchling let out a faint sound, something between a whimper and a breath. Its head shifted, pressing weakly against him. Kale froze. Because it wasn't pulling away. It wasn't fighting. It wasn't afraid. Not anymore. It was trusting him. The realization hit harder than any wound. You don't even know me, he whispered. And yet, here it was, clinging to him as if he was safety. As if he was the only thing standing between it and the dark. Kale swallowed, his throat tight. Don't worry, he said softly, I won't let you go. The words were a promise. One he had no right to make. Because he could feel it. The weakness. The fatting. His body was giving out. Every breath was harder than the last. Every heartbeat slower. He was dying. And now, so was it. Kale shifted, pulling his cloak tighter around them, shielding the hatchling from the rain as best he could. Stay with me, he murmured, just stay with me a little longer. The hatchling's breathing faltered. A pause. Too long. Kale's chest tightened. Hey, he said urgently, lowering his head to meet its gaze. Hey, no, no, don't do that. Its eyes flickered. Fatting. No, Kale whispered, panic rising. Look at me, stay with me. His hands tightened slightly, careful but desperate. You're not dying here, he said, voice shaking. You hear me, not here, not like this. The storm roared. The world shook. But Kale refused. Refused to accept it. Refused to let another life slip away in silence. Not while he was still breathing. Take it, he whispered. And then, he gave. Not magic. Not something learned. Something instinctive. Something deeper. The warmth inside him, the last fragile spark of life he still held, he pushed it outward. Into the small body in his arms. It wasn't a spell. There were no words. Just will. Just refusal. You're not dying, he murmured, not while I'm here. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the hatchling's body twitched. A breath. Deeper. Stronger. Kale let out a shaky exhale. That's it, he whispered. That's it, stay with me. But the cost was everything. His vision blurred completely now, darkness closing in. His heartbeat slowed. Each breath became a struggle. But still, he held on. Because the hatchling's breathing was steady now. Because it was alive. Because it was worth it. Oh good, he murmured faintly. The hatchling stirred, its eyes opening fully now. Clear. Alive. It looked at him. And something passed between them. Something unseen. Unspoken. A bond. Forged in the space between life and death. Kale smiled faintly. Oh, you made it. His hand slipped. Strength gone. That's enough, he whispered. The hatchling made a soft sound, pressing closer. As if trying to keep him there. But Kale's eyes were already closing. The cold crept in. The storm faded. Alive, he whispered. And then, darkness took him. The storm passed. Eventually, as all storms do, the sky cleared. The rain stopped. And silence returned to the valley. But at the base of the cliffs, among the ruins of what once was, something impossible remained. The hatchling stirred. Alive. And beneath it, the humans, still breathing. Barely, but breathing. And the bond between them, unseen, unbreakable, had only just begun. The one who refused to leave. The first thing Kale felt was warmth. Not pain. Not cold. Warmth. It wrapped around him, steady and constant, pressing gently against his side, seeping into bones that had long since forgotten what it meant to feel anything but ache and exhaustion. For a long moment he did not move. Because warmth meant life. And life did not make sense. His brow furrowed slightly, breath catching as awareness slowly crept back into his body. There was weight on his chest, light but present. Something soft, no, not soft, scaled, faintly rough, shifted against him. Breathing. Not his own. Kale's eyes opened. The world came back slowly, blurred at the edges, light filtering in uneven beams across rough stone walls. The ceiling above him curved irregularly, jagged in places, smooth in others. A cave. I'm inside, his voice was barely more than a rasp, dry and broken. He tried to move. Pain answered immediately. Sharp, real, undeniable. It shot through his side, his chest, his limbs, each nerve reminding him that he was not dead. He inhaled sharply, the breath trembling as it filled his lungs. I'm alive. The word sounded distant, as if spoken by someone else. Alive? He shouldn't have been. He remembered the storm, the cold, the blood soaking his side, the way his strength had drained with each passing moment, slipping away until even breathing had felt like too much. He remembered closing his eyes. Remembered letting go. And then, the hatchling. Kale's eyes widened slightly, clarity snapping into place with sudden urgency. He turned his head. And froze. It was there. Curled tightly against his side, its small body pressed firmly against him as if it had never moved, never left. One wing was tucked awkwardly, still healing but no longer twisted as before. Its scales, once dull and lifeless, now held a faint sheen, catching the light with subtle iridescence. Its chest rose and fell, steady, alive. Kale stared at it for a long moment, disbelief settling deep in his chest. You made it. The words came softer this time, filled with something quieter. Relief. The hatchling stirred at the sound. Its head lifted slowly, movements careful, as if testing its own strength. Its eyes opened, clear now, bright in a way they had not been before. Alive. Truly alive. And when it saw him, it moved. Quickly and clumsily. It pushed itself upright and stumbled forward, its small claws scraping lightly against the stone as it closed the distance between them. It pressed itself against his chest, nudging him with its snout, letting out a soft, uncertain chirp. Kale blinked. Well, hey. His hand lifted instinctively, though the motion sent a sharp flare of pain through his arm. He ignored it, resting his fingers gently against the hatchling's head. It didn't pull away. Didn't flinch. Instead, it leaned into the touch, pressing closer, the warmth of its body radiating against him. As if confirming, he was real. Alive. Still there. Kale let out a slow breath. You stayed. The hatchling chirped again, softer this time, its body settling more firmly against him. Of course it stayed. In its world, there had never been a question. Kale shifted slightly, wincing as pain reminded him of his condition. He glanced down at his side. The wound had been cleaned. Poorly, but enough. Cloth-torn rough had been wrapped tightly around his torso, not expertly, not neatly, but intentionally. Kale frowned. Oh, you did. His gaze flicked back to the hatchling. It blinked at him. Innocent, unawares. And yet, the cloth was there. The blood had been wiped away. The wound, while still painful, was no longer bleeding freely. Someone had done this. But there was no one else. No tracks. No sign of another presence. Only the hatchling. Kale let out a quiet, disbelieving laugh that turned into a grimace halfway through. You couldn't have. But the truth lingered. Unspoken. Unexplained. The hatchling shifted again, curling tighter against him, its tail wrapping loosely across his arm as if anchoring him in place. As if ensuring he wouldn't disappear. Kale exhaled slowly. Guess I don't get to question it. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the warmth sink deeper into him. Alive. They were both alive. That should have been enough. Time passed differently in the cave. There was no sun to mark the hours, no clear boundary between day and night. Only the slow shift of light at the cave's entrance, the fading brightness as evening approached, the deepening shadows that followed. Kale drifted in and out of sleep, his body demanding rest it had long been denied. And every time he woke, the hatchling was there. Always close. Always watching. Sometimes curled against him, its steady breathing a quiet reassurance. Sometimes awake, its bright eyes fixed on him as if ensuring he would not slip away again. It never left. Not once. Until, one day, it did. Kale woke to silence. The warmth at his side was gone. His eyes opened immediately, alert despite the lingering exhaustion. Well, hey. His voice echoed faintly against the cave walls. No answer. He pushed himself upright, ignoring the sharp protest from his body. Where are you? Panic flickered quick and unwelcome. The cave felt colder without it. Empty. He swung his legs over the side, attempting to stand. And nearly collapsed. Damn it, he hissed, catching himself against the wall. Too soon. His strength hadn't returned enough. But the absence. It felt wrong. Too quiet. Too still. He forced himself to take a step. Then another. Each one shaky, uncertain. He reached the cave entrance and paused. The world outside had changed. The storm had stripped it bare. Trees lay broken, branches scattered across the ground. The earth was torn, marked by the violence that had passed through it. But the sky was clear. Bright, peaceful, as if nothing had happened at all. Kale exhaled slowly. Figures. A sound broke the silence. Soft, familiar. He turned, just in time to see it. The hatchling stumbled into view, dragging something behind it. Kale blinked. Who is that? The hatchling let out a small, triumphant chirp, dropping its prize at the cave entrance. A small animal. Freshly caught. Kale stared, then looked back at the hatchling. You went hunting. The hatchling puffed up slightly as if proud. Kale huffed a quiet laugh. Of course you did. It nudged the food toward him. Insistent. Kale raised an eyebrow. You expect me to eat that? The hatchling tilted its head. Confused. Kale sighed. Right fair. He crouched slowly, examining the catch. Well, better than starving. The hatchling watched intently as he worked, its gaze never leaving his hands. Learning, observing, and when he finally managed to prepare the meat, tearing off a small piece. It leaned forward. Curious. Kale paused. You want some too? The hatchling blinked, then opened its mouth. Kale chuckled weakly. Guess that answers that. Days turned into weeks. And something changed. Not just in the hatchling, but in Kale. His strength returned slowly, each day bringing a little more stability, a little less pain. He could stand longer, move farther, breathe easier. And the hatchling, it grew, faster than anything natural. Its limbs lengthened, muscles strengthening beneath its scales. Its wings, once fragile and broken, began to stretch fully, the damaged joints healing with surprising speed. Its movements became sharper, more precise, less clumsy. But one thing never changed. It stayed, always, even as it grew stronger, even as it could have left. It chose not to. Kale sat near the cave entrance one evening, watching as the hatchling, no longer quite so small, tested its wings. It leapt, flapped, lifted, and immediately crashed into the ground. Kale winced. Are you good? The hatchling huffed, shaking itself before trying again. And again. And again. Kale watched, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Stubborn. It didn't stop. Not once. Because in its mind, failure was not an ending. Just a step. And eventually, it worked. The hatchling leapt, wings beating hard, lifting itself just enough to glide a short distance before landing. It froze, as if surprised. Kale blinked. Oh, you did it. The hatchling turned toward him. And for the first time, it made a sound that wasn't fear. Wasn't pain, but something else. Something brighter. Pride. Kale smiled. Oh, yes, you did. The night everything changed. Came quietly. Too quietly. Kale woke suddenly, his body tense before his mind caught up. Something was wrong. The air felt different. Heavy. Still. And then, he heard it. Voices. Distant, but unmistakable. Tracks led this way. Told you something survived the storm. Be ready if it's a dragon's. Kale's blood ran cold. A hunter's. The word slipped from his lips like a curse. The hatchling was already awake. Standing. Alert. Its body low, tense. Its gaze fixed on the cave entrance. Kale pushed himself up, ignoring the pain. We need to move, he said quietly. The hatchling didn't move. It didn't retreat. Instead, it stepped forward. Between him and the entrance. Kale froze. Hey. A low sound rumbled from the hatchling's chest. Not loud, not threatening, but clear, protective. Kale's breath caught. No. He shook his head, stepping forward, placing a hand against its back. You don't understand, these aren't animals, they're hunters, they'll kill you. The hatchling didn't move. Didn't back down. The growl deepened. And for the first time, Kale realized something. It wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Because it wasn't alone. "You're not big enough for this," he said softly. The hatchling shifted slightly, pressing closer to the cave entrance. Shielding him, Kale's chest tightened. "You idiot." The words were quiet, affectionate, helpless, because he understood now. The same way he had refused to leave it. It refused to leave him. Outside, footsteps approached. Steel glinted in the dim light. Voices grew louder. "There a cave. Stay sharp." Kale exhaled slowly. "All right," he whispered. His hand rested firmly against the hatchling's side. "Then we stand together." The hatchling didn't look back, but its wings spread slightly. "Ready?" And as the shadows of armed men appeared at the cave entrance, they both knew nothing would ever be the same again. The wings that chose to protect. The first man through the cave entrance never saw the danger. He stepped inside with the confidence of someone who had done this before, boots scraping against stone, blade already drawn, eyes adjusting to the dim light. "Clear," he muttered over his shoulder. He was wrong. The growl that answered him did not belong to anything he understood. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was low, deep, a sound that vibrated through bone rather than air. The man froze. What was? The darkness moved. The hatchling lunged. It wasn't large. Not yet. But it was fast. Faster than anything its size had a right to be. It slammed into the man's chest, knocking him backward with a force that stole the air from his lungs. Steel clattered against stone as his sword slipped from his grip. He barely had time to shout before claws pressed against his throat. "Sharp, precise, ready." Outside, voices erupted. "What happened?" "Inside, move." Kale's heart hammered. "Wait," he started, but the words came too late. More boots. More steel. More dangers. The cave filled with movement as the hunters surged forward, weapons raised, eyes scanning for threats. And then, they saw it. The dragons. Small, but unmistakable. "By the gods," one of them whispered. "Kill it," another barked instantly, "before it grows." Steel flashed. The world narrowed. Kale moved without thinking. "Stop," he shouted, stepping forward, putting himself between them and the hatchling. The hunters hesitated. "Not long. Just enough." "Move aside," the leader said coldly, leveling his blade. "That thing is not your concern." Kale didn't move. "It is," he said, voice steady despite the pounding of his pulse. The man's eyes narrowed. "You're protecting it." Kale held his ground. Behind him, the hatchling shifted, its low growl never fading, its body tense and ready. "Oh yes." The word was simple. Final. The hunters exchanged glances. Then one of them laughed. Short, disbelieving. "You've lost your mind." "Maybe," Kale said quietly, "but I'm not stepping aside." The leader sighed, almost bored. "Then you die with it." He raised his blade. And the world broke. The hatchling moved first. A blur of motion, a flash of scales and claws as it launched forward. Not at the closest man, not at the one who had spoken. At the leader. Smart. Instinctive. It struck low, knocking the man off balance before his blade could fall. He stumbled, cursing, his strike going wide as he fell. "Damn it." The others reacted instantly. Steel swung. Too slow. The hatchling twisted midair, landing hard against the cave wall before launching again, faster this time. Smarter. Kale didn't hesitate. He moved. Not as fast. Not as strong. But enough. He grabbed a fallen sword, his grip tightening despite the pain screaming through his side. "Back," he shouted. The hunters ignored him. They always did. Steel met steel as one of them lunged, his strike aimed to kill. Kale blocked. Barely. The force rattled through his arms, nearly knocking the blade from his grip. "You're in the way," the man snarled. Kale shoved him back. "Then go around." Behind him, the hatchling cried out, a sharp, furious sound, as it dodged another strike. Too many. They were too many. Kale saw it in an instant. They couldn't win like this. Not yet. Not here. Hey, he shouted, glancing back, we can't hold them. The hatchling didn't retreat. It never would. Kale cursed under his breath. Then we move. He stepped forward, drawing the hunters' attention. Come on, he barked, slashing wide, forcing them back. You want it, then come through me. The bait worked. They surged forward. And in that moment, Kale grabbed the hatchling. Now, he turned, sprinting, limping, stumbling toward the back of the cave. After them, someone shouted. The chase began. The cave wasn't just a shelter. It was a passage. Kale hadn't realized it before, too focused on survival, on healing. But now, as he ran deeper into the dark, he saw it. The tunnel sloped downward. Twisting. Narrowing. Perfect. The hatchling clung to him at first, confused by the sudden movement, but when the sounds of pursuit echoed behind them, it understood. It leapt free, racing beside him. Faster. Always faster. Go, Kale urged, breath-ragged, leads. The hatchling surged ahead, its movements sure even in the dark, as if it could feel the path. Behind them. Boots. Voices. Closer. Don't let them escape. Kale's legs burned. His lungs screamed. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not now. The tunnel narrowed suddenly, forcing him to turn sideways to squeeze through. The hatchling slipped through easily. Kale followed. And behind him, a shout. They're heading into the lower tunnels. Cut them off. Kale's heart sank. They know this place. Of course they did. Hunters didn't walk blindly. They planned. Tracked. Prepared. Faster, he gasped. The tunnel opened suddenly, spilling them out into light. Kale stumbled to a stop. What? The space beyond was vast. A hidden valley carved into the mountain itself, its walls rising high above, shielding it from the outside world. Light poured in from a break in the cliffs above, illuminating a stretch of green untouched by the storm. Water flowed nearby. Clear, calm, alive. For a moment, Kale forgot everything. It's beautiful. The hatchling stepped forward, equally still. Drawn, as if something in this place called to it. But the moment shattered. They're here. Voices echoed from behind. Kale turned. The hunters emerged from the tunnel, spreading out quickly, cutting off escape. Of course, he muttered. He shifted his stance, placing himself between them and the hatchling once more. Stay behind me, he said quietly. The hatchling didn't. It stepped beside him. Equal. Kale huffed a breath. Stubborn. The leader stepped forward, brushing dust from his armor, his expression cold. No more runnings. Kale tightened his grip on the sword. Wasn't planning on it. The man's gaze shifted to the hatchling. Then back to Kale. You're making a mistake. Maybe, Kale said, but it's mine to make. The leader raised his hand. The hunters moved. And then, the world roared. Not the storm. Not the wind. Something deeper. Older. The ground trembled. The air itself seemed to shudder. Everyone froze. What was that? One of the hunters whispered. The hatchling's head snapped upward. Its body went still. Not in fear. In recognition. Kale felt it too. Something vast. Something powerful. Watching. Another roars. Closer. The sky darkened. A shadow passed overhead. Massive. Impossible. The hunters staggered back. No, that's not. It can't be. But it was. Wings blotted out the light. A form descended from the sky, vast and terrible, its scales gleaming like molten stone, its eyes burning with ancient fire. A dragon. Not a hatchling. Not small. A true dragon. The hunters broke. Fear shattered whatever courage they had left. Run. Too late. The dragon landed with a force that shook the valley, its gaze locking onto the scene before it. The hatchling, the humans, the threat. Its lips pulled back, revealing rows of teeth that could tear through steel like paper. Fire flickered in its throat. Kale's breath caught. We're dead. The hatchling stepped forward. Alone, toward the massive dragon. Kale's heart stopped. Wait, but the hatchling didn't stop. It moved closer. Unafraid, the larger dragon lowered its head, eyes narrowing as it studied the smaller one. Silence fell, heavy, unbroken, and then the hatchling made a sound. Soft, familiar, the same broken cry Kale had heard in the storm. The same sound of pain, of fear, of survival. The great dragon stilled. Its gaze shifted to Kale, standing, bleeding, between the hunters and the hatchling. Protecting it. Understanding dawned. Slow, terrible, the fire in its throat dimmed. And then, it turned, not toward Kale, toward the hunters. Its roar shattered the valley, and the sky burned. When the fire faded, silence followed. The hunters were gone. Those who survived had fled. Those who had didn't matter. Kale stood frozen, the sword slipping from his hand as his strength finally gave out. He sank to his knees. That could have gone better. A shadow fell over him. He looked up slowly. The great dragon stood before him, vast and unmoving, its gaze fixed on him. Judging, measuring, Kale swallowed. Yeah, I know, he muttered. I look terrible. The dragon didn't react. Its eyes flicked to the hatchling who had returned to Kale's side, pressing against him protectively. The two stood there. Humans, dragon, together, alive, and something shifted. The great dragon lowered its head. Slowly, carefully, not a threat, an acknowledgement. Kale blinked. The hatchling chirped softly. And for the first time, the world did not feel like it was trying to tear them apart. It felt balanced. Kale exhaled, a faint smile touching his lips. Guess we're not done yet. The hatchling pressed closer. The great dragon watched. And far above, the sky stretched endless and open. Waiting, because this was only the beginning of a story the world would never forget. A dying man's, a dying hatchling, and the bond that turned them into something more. Not master and beast, not owner and weapons, but something rarer, something stronger. A promise, forged in storm and blood, to live and to protect, together,